So I'm putting up a video this week of a sort of an interview, a discussion, a casting session that I had by Zoom with Phil Blackmar. Now Phil's on the Sexy Looks board, very interesting guy. We had some really interesting discussions a couple of years ago on the board. He is an ex-pro golfer. He was on the PGA Tour, successful on that, professional golfer, and he did a lot of coaching as well since then, and now he's actually a TV commentator on the golf circuit. So I thought it'd be interesting to have a chat to him for a number of reasons. Firstly, I was kind of really interested to know how it's like to compete at that higher level, and any sort of advice he would give, particularly for us guys who compete, but not as often as Phil, not week in, week out. So I thought that would be interesting. I was also interested in the commentator bit because it's something we really need to focus on in our casting sport if it's going to be successful for a wider audience. And so I was keen to hear any sort of advice or stories he had on that. And then finally, we met before, probably about 6 months ago, and had a look at some of his casting. So it'd be interesting to see how he's getting on with that and see if I can give him a few bits of advice and maybe learn some stuff myself. So I hope you enjoy it. It's a bit rough to begin with, but we eventually get the cameras around the right way as we go. So enjoy.
Good morning.
Right.
Hi, how are you?
Paul? You hear me? I'm good.
Yep.
How are you?
Yeah, I'm very good. I just got up. So do you get to fish when you're off working, commentating?
I always at least take a rod to cast.
Yeah.
And then depending where we go, then sometimes I will fish. If it's in some places I fish, yeah, it just depends if there's a lot of golf courses have great fishing for bass particularly. And so I'll fish for those if we have that. We don't really fish any place where I can go trout fishing to speak of. So you're kind of limited time wise. When I go to Florida, I'll go a day or two early sometimes and go with Paul Azinger, is a friend down there. He lives on the water, and I'll go with him a little bit, or have another friend down there as well. But yeah, I always take a rod and throw at the very least.
Yeah, I bet you might actually have some pretty good exclusive access. Is it private at all, and you just sneak around with the?
The rule is don't ask, just go do it until you throw you off. So I was last time I worked was the week before last in Palm Springs, and they had some bass in that pond, and I caught 8 or 10 bass for the week, something like that.
Yeah, very
nice.
I
fished 3 times. Yeah. So It was good. It was interesting. The wind would blow in the morning when I'd go practice before I went to work. It would blow 20 miles an hour. And then all of a sudden about 10 o'clock, it would quit, and it would be calm for the whole tournament. And then the tournament would end about 4 o'clock. We're off air. And so I'd go out on the golf course to fish in the ponds a little, and here comes the wind again and start blowing 20 to 25 again now in the evening. So I was hoping for some calm weather.
But a good training for when you're back home.
Every time I look at you, there's calm on the lake. I'm jealous.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Well, when it gets windy here, it's usually because there's a big storm coming through, and then you have to sort of take action to get the boat in a sheltered bay, because you never know how it's going to be. Hey, Phil, can you turn turn on this landscape?
How's that?
That's much better.
Better?
Yeah.
Okay.
Brilliant.
All right. How's your fishing been?
Oh, really hard. Really hard.
Really?
Well, one of the issues is I'm doing a lot of the online coaching. So that means I kind of have to be around internet for most of the week, and it's pretty much every day now. So that restricts me away from the bottom end of the lake. But I just have to get it together and take the hour and a half to get down there and have a look, and then come back in the evening. So there are babies around, and
that's the direction.
Golf
instruction has gone that way, where a lot of the top instructors are doing all Zoom lessons now rather than hands-on. Yeah. Same thing.
It's been a real eye-opener in terms of what it does. I've never had in flycasting. You just generally don't get lessons for more than 1, maybe 2 lessons, but here 12,
right?
And a lot of them are rebooking as well. I've been coaching one guy for 3 years now, in that
That's
time.
awesome. That makes it fun, doesn't it?
It does. You get to know them very well, and you really get to improve. So there's
Right.
two aspects to it that I really like. Otherwise, it's just like
Yeah.
a constant one lesson, or giving the same lesson all the time isn't a lot of fun, you know.
Right. Right.
It's much more interesting, and it's great because they go away fishing and they have a challenge, and they come back and they say, this is what we were trying to do in Oman, fishing for permit, and this was a difficult cast, and then we can develop that. It makes it interesting.
Well, that was for me when I was coaching golf. The most fun was it didn't matter how good or bad the player was, but if they kept coming back, so that you could do things and look down the road a little bit,
Yeah.
and it could be a shared journey to exploration and finding things. That was what was fun. Even if it was just a beginner, it was fun. It's the ones that would come in and say, "Hey, I have a tournament this weekend. I need a lesson."
Yeah,
Great.
yeah. And you get to do so much more when you have that longer term view, and it makes the lesson really relaxing, because it's like it's going to change. If it happens this week or it happens next month, it doesn't really matter, because we're going to get there, and it's been absolutely brilliant. So yeah, so that's been a game changer. What about you? Do you still coach?
Not that much. I'm kind of at a point now where I'm still working quite a bit. I've been when I was playing, I was on the road for 25 to 30 weeks a year. Then in between the regular tour and the PGA Tour Champions, I did coaching. I coached with Jim Flick, who's a Hall of Fame instructor. Mike Nolasco was Teacher of the Year at PGA of America. And I did golf schools with them for a couple of years. I taught here in my hometown for a couple of years. Then I got back into doing television. I was traveling 25 to 30 weeks a year. And I just enjoy my time at home. When I'm going to be home, I do good enough if I'm doing that many weeks of TV. And at home, I'm going to go fishing. I'm not going to lose all my fishing days. You only have so many days, Paul. We're only going to live so long. I'm 65 years old. I got X number of days left. And so I want to do what I really enjoy. And for me, Flycasting has taken the place of golf. I can't do what I could do with golf before. And the game has changed. It's gone a direction that wasn't really the way that I played it. It's not as much fun for me. I used to work really hard on my golf swing. I was very technical, too technical. I got way too technical on my golf swing. And the exploration of trying to find out what works and what doesn't in certain situations, those sort of things, it's now this. Where it used to be a golf club, now it's this. And so that's been what's fun for me. And if I coach, it takes away from all that. If I get into doing that, so no, I really don't do any anymore.
When you work on your golf swing, how many hours typically a day would you work on it? It's a full-time job. Does that mean you're using it for
well, you had to balance being in a good frame of mind. So I would go play 5 weeks in a row. I'd be gone for 5 straight weeks. And I would work on if I was going to work on my swing, I'd work on it Monday, Tuesday, something like that. Starting Wednesday, you try to start working just on playing the golf course and how that sort of stuff. Unfortunately, I had this repeating error that I made throughout my career, and I wasn't smart enough to figure it out. I would get too technical, and I'd get on the golf swing, and I'd start thinking about my golf swing instead of playing golf, and I wouldn't do very well. And I'd get my back up against the wall where I needed to play well to keep my status or my card on tour. I'd forget about all that, and I would just do whatever I could do, as unorthodox as it may be, to get it down there and get it in the hole. Then I would have a good week or two, make enough money. Then I'd go work with some other highfalutin teacher or start working on my game again with video and everything else, trying to make this perfect golf swing. And I had this illusion that you could get to the point of where that you stood on a tee and all you did was just make your swing. You could trust it and it would go down there, and that was how you played. And that's not how you play. That's not what golf is. And so I never figured it out till I quit.
Yeah. So what? I mean, what is it? It's constantly changing, is it? And it's just having a really wide variety of shots. Do you attribute luck to it at all, or do you?
Oh yeah, sure. There's luck. Otherwise, the same player would win every week,
Okay.
but they don't. So there's a lot of luck involved. But the equipment has changed where now guys are beginning to play more. I like to say the idea: does the shot create the swing, or does the swing create the shot? In other words, if you're looking at a cast and you're going to throw up underneath some trees at a little pocket, Are you going to sit there and make just a perfect lined up overhead cast? Or are you going to adapt it for something to fit that shot? If you adapt it, then the shot's creating the cast or creating the swing. If you're going to make the same shot every time, then the swing's creating the shot. And because the equipment has changed so much, a lot of guys are starting to play more with the swing creates the shot and just play the same shot over and over. And they figure, you know what? There's so much money out there. I'm going to have my weeks where everything works out, where it fits right, and I'm going to make a bunch of money doing that, and I'm not going to worry about it. The great players, the really great players at a tour level, not all tour players are great. The great ones at a tour level are the ones that can adapt. Tiger Woods was phenomenal at adapting. Justin Thomas was. Bubba Watson was. Of course, a lot of the players from Europe are phenomenal, and Australia's both are phenomenal at adapting because they grow up in a lot of wind and different conditions that forces them to learn when they're growing up how to adapt. But we're even seeing more players now from Europe that play with a golf swing. Rory McIlroy is more of a swinger than he is a shot maker. You know, we're starting to see more of that even from Europe and Australia now.
Okay. It must be absolutely fascinating. Absolutely fascinating.
It truly is. You know, you got to fit the individual.
What age did you stop playing?
Stop or start?
Stop.
I had a knee replacement done about 5 years ago, and with that, I kind of needed to have the other one done if I wanted to keep playing golf. And I said, you know, this just isn't any fun anymore. I'm not enjoying this. I need a different search, a different passion. So I came up with 2 or 3 other passions.
So still competitive all the way through to 60.
Yeah, I played on the PGA Tour Champions till I was 56, and then after that, I started doing television again. But I still, when I played, I mean, for me, golf was always a competition. It was life is a competition. I think successful people view life as that. You know, whether you're putting together a video that you want people to watch, you're competing against other people that put together videos. You know, you want them to watch yours. Whether you're going out fishing, you're competing against the elements and the fish and all sorts of other things. In golf, I never went out and just played golf for fun. I played golf for money. I would gamble, not big stakes, but I always had some sort of a game. The game was what intrigued me. I wanted to look you in the eye and say, come on, let's go play, you and I. You know, let's see what you can do. That's what I enjoyed. I enjoyed that aspect of it.
Yeah. It's great. And to be able to, I mean, I think it's fantastic that you could actually make a living doing something that you enjoy. So many people don't do that, you know. It's wonderful. And in sport, we don't have that money in fly fishing. We all end up being coaching and other avenues, guiding and so on. We don't have the guide, or I think we have it in bass, but we don't have it in fly. Did you ever think about another sport?
You know, I played baseball growing up, but I'm 6'7". I was almost 6'8". I'm shrinking now, but I was almost 6'8". And I played baseball growing up, but I couldn't run. I ran like a dump truck. I couldn't run at all. And when I got into high school, I could really hit. I could field, but I was right-handed and slow, and I played first base. And we had a left-handed player who was fast as the wind, who could also hit. And I looked at him, and he's 6'3", and I'm looking at me, and I'm going, "There ain't no way I'm going to play." So I quit baseball at that time and just went to golf. I never really played any other sport seriously at all. I had a pretty good touch shooting a basketball, but I couldn't move. I couldn't jump. So golf was pretty much it for me.
So at the age of, what age was that?
15. 15.
That's great.
Yeah. But see, it was a different road for me getting to the tour. I wasn't what most people, when they view a professional golfer. When I got out of college, I went to work as a auditor's assistant in a bank in Austin, Texas. And I worked for a year, 40 hours a week, 5 days a week in a coat and tie. And while I was there, my uncle talked me into, hey, you know, why don't you go play some mini tours? I'll sponsor you, find some other sponsors and see what you can do. So I played mini tours or small events. I'm trying to make my way to the tour for 3.5 years. They have a qualifying once a year to get on the tour. Back then they did, and I didn't make it through. So I quit again, and I went to work in a pro shop as an assistant pro. I taught some there, and I was assistant pro. And then I went back to the qualifying tournament while I was there. And while I was there, I got my card. And so then I joined the tour at age 26. where most guys, I think of them joining right out of college. For me, it was a little longer road. I drove a Coke truck to make money. I fixed sprinklers on a golf course at the golf club repair, all sorts of things just to make ends meet until I finally got on tour.
That's really fantastic. So, and tell me, what about the commentary? I mean, how did you get to that?
I never dreamed of doing commentary. Never dreamed of it. And I had a manager back when I was playing the regular tour. And when I quit the regular tour, I was 43 and I had a hard time dealing with frustration. I was a very in your face kind of a player, very aggressive. I won 3 times on the regular tour. Each time was in a playoff. I birdied the first hole each time to win. I enjoyed pressure, but I had a hard time with frustration. So when I wasn't doing well, I stood in front of the ass kicking machine and stuck my foot up my rear every chance I had. And so by the time I'm 43, I'm like, I don't have any ass left. I got to quit. And so my manager called me. Started doing a little teaching actually. He said, "You ever think about doing TV?" I said, "No." He says, "I got a tryout for you." So I tried out with ESPN. And I got to tell you the story. It'll take a minute. But Charlie Reimer, Charlie is a kind of a hick guy from Georgia. He is 6'4". I'm 6'7", and my boss, when I first went in for the first day, he says, "You ever do this?" I said, "No, I don't know anything about it, Chris." He says, "Reimer, come train Big." So Charlie Reimer comes out to train me. We put on our belts, and he's got this hick accent. And he says, "Now, Big, there's only 2 things you got to know to do this job." He says, "Number 1 is to lay out. Do you know what it means to lay out?" I said, "No." I said, "Well, lay out means to shut the F up." He says, "You can only get in trouble if you talk when you're not supposed to talk. So if you don't know if you're supposed to talk, lay out." I said, "Well, I can do that." He said, "Now, number 2 is this switch on your side right here. If it's in the middle of your dead air, no one can hear you. If you push it forward, hold it now. It's spring loaded. You got to hold it down. But if you hold it down, you can talk to Chris or Jason in the truck. But if you push it backwards, you're on. You're live. It doesn't matter if it's my hole or Billy's hole or Andy's hole. America will hear you." He says, "Now that's very important to remember because you might be walking down the fairway and your fat roll might push that switch forward and you didn't know it. And you might see some guy in the gallery that you know, and you might walk up and say, 'Hey, mother effer, what are you doing?' And America just heard you." That was my training. That was it.
So never any courses or anything, just naturally.
No, they throw you out there. Here's the deal. See if you can do it. When I went on the first day, we went out an hour early so I could practice and listen to see what happens. And they couldn't get the satellite up, so they couldn't get it working until a minute before we're on air. So I went on air having never listened on headphones, never done anything. They're like, "Okay, here's what's going to happen. Here's when you should talk," because they don't tell you when to talk. You got to know when to talk. And it was interesting. And we call it tape shots too. So, a guy might hit a shot and they'll record it. And then, because they're trying to follow so many different shots on the golf course, there's 78 players at any one time. So I might walk up and the same guy might be hitting a putt, and the producer might say, maybe his name's John. He says, "Okay, John's second shot on 13. Well, John might be putting right now on 13, that I'm following him. But I got to remember, okay, John's second shot was, I got to jump in now. I say, well, he had 150 yards. Here's the shot he had. That's a good looking shot, all without being able to see it. Can't see it.
Oh, wow.
I got to just listen. You got 8 seconds of tape before he hits it. And you got about 7 or 8 seconds until it hits the ground. And then you got 8 seconds of tape after the ball stops. And so you got to fit everything in there and get the hell out, because if you keep talking, the tape's done and they don't have anywhere to go. So
and you haven't seen the shot happen from before?
Yeah, you saw the shot happen,
so
but you're not watching the monitor. Yeah, so you just remember it, but you can't see the monitor.
Wow, very difficult.
But it's challenging because you try to be interesting. You try to be on that edge between going too far, because you don't want to sound just like just droning on.
Yeah.
And yet you don't want to get fired for saying something you shouldn't say. So it's a kind of a catchy deal, if you will.
Yeah, I heard there was you mentioned in the comments about swear words. You've had some.
You need to avoid those.
Huh? Have you had any accidents?
No, I've not had any accidents, but we'll have some fun on occasion. I used to. I haven't done it in a while, but I used to put together 8 or 10 words for a show, and I'd share them with one or two of my friends that were also commentating and say, "Okay, let's see who can get the most words in during the show." And I got kaleidoscope in one day, even. I waited for a guy to hit it in the trees, and I said, he's got so many shadows and sunlight, different prisms in here. It's like you're in a kaleidoscope trying to find your way out. So you do it in a way where you're not going to embarrass yourself. But yeah, you do some things that are pretty fun.
That's great. How many commentators are there on a show like that?
It depends. Everything now is about cutting money. Everybody's trying to save money. So mostly what I'm doing right now is on the PGA Tour Champions, which is the old guys, which is the guys I know, which I really enjoy. And we've only got 3 commentators. We have a host, Lanny Watkins, who's in the Hall of Fame, and I'm on the ground. On the PGA Tour, we normally have 5, 2 guys on the ground and 3 guys up in the box. And so that's generally somewhere between 3 and 5.
So on the ground, that means you're running around the course?
I'm running around the course, following players, which I enjoy most. I'm very analytical, and I like to be out there following the action in person with one group, watching the players and talking about each shot that they have. Versus when I'm in the box, now you're worrying about all the different players, all the different bios, all going to commercial breaks, all this other stuff that to me, that's not my strength. My strength is talking about golf.
Right. And you must know everybody. I mean, obviously you know everybody now from commentating, but you must have, when you first started, you must have known them as friends from playing together. Is it like a close relationship? I mean, there's only so many people on it, so I imagine you'll know each other.
The commentators are very close. The players are very close. The players on the regular tour now, I'm so far removed. They don't know me hardly at all, other than maybe some of the commentating, and I don't really know them. And it's such a different world now, Paul, than it used to be. I mean, even Mark McCumber's son has played the PGA Tour some, and I was covering him on a smaller tour called the Corn Ferry Tour. And we were out walking a practice round with him one day, and I asked him, Craig Perks and I said, well, what's the difference between when you followed your dad back in the day and playing with the guys now? He says, you guys were a lot meaner. And that's it, really. You could keep your card and stay exempt and stay eligible on the PGA Tour and lose money for the year. Now, if you keep your card, you're going to make a minimum of $1 million, minimum.
Wow.
That money has just changed the whole atmosphere tremendously. And it's different. It just doesn't mean it's right or wrong. It's just different.
Wow, that's a huge amount of money difference.
It is. It really is.
Yeah.
And
you wish you were born, 30 or 40 years later.
Well, absolutely. My game would have been much more suited for today's game because I could hit it really far back in the day. And I finished second in the National Long Drive one year and fifth another year. I could launch it, but I was wayward. I was all over the map. And so my game back then, the game was more about consistency, and now the game's more about distance. And this game suits me a lot better than that game did. So, but I'm proud that I played 16 years on the regular tour, and won 3 times. I'm proud of having lasted that long like that.
Did you have coaching? I mean, and did you
I
have
did. I mean,
regular coach or do you mix?
Well, my dad was probably my best coach growing up. We kind of reached a point where we argued a lot, didn't get a lot done. And he was so much into rhythm. Now that was good rhythm. I said, Dad, if I got to rely on rhythm to hit a good shot, I get on that first tee, I'm going to be nervous. I'm going to jump at it. I'm going to swing hard. And if I got to be sitting there, la-ti-da-ti-da-ti-da-ti-da, I've got no chance. I got to be able to hit it. And we would go round and round and round. And what's interesting is now I'm much more in tune with rhythm and think that's a bigger part than I used to. I used to think there's some magical, mechanical, connected, perfect position, plain golf swing that would solve all the riddles. Then I went to work with David Ledbetter. David's, one of the more a very influential teacher, was for a while there one of the most popular teachers in the world. And then I quit him, went back and worked with myself and my dad. Then I went to work a little bit with Butch Harmon, who is a very good teacher, but we didn't really. Butch is 5'6" and I'm 6'7", and he asked me. He said one day, he said, "Listen, I want you to think of Jeff Sluman when you swing." And Jeff Sluman's 5'6", and I've looked at Butch and I'm done. I'm done. What do I owe you? I'm out of here. And then I worked with myself again for a while. Then I went to work with Jim Flick, and I really liked Flick. He was a Hall of Fame instructor. He was Nicklaus's coach for a long time. Okay. And after Jack Grout had passed away, and but the deal was I'm 6'7", and there's a certain amount. The repeatability, the taller you are in golf, the harder it is to repeat things, because you got all these things swinging on a plane. You got your arms on a plane, the club on a plane, your shoulders on a plane, your hips on a plane. And the taller you are, the more you bend over and the more different all those planes are. And golf is, consistency is always all about synchronization, as is throwing a fly. It's always about the right order of things happening. And the more different those planes are, the harder it is to make them work in sync. And so most of your tall players, I'm the tallest player to ever won on the PGA Tour. And so it's just harder, and trying to connect and find something that would work for me. I wish I'd known Ernie Els a little better. I know him pretty well, but I wish I'd known him better back then and watched Ernie a little bit more. He's about 6'4", and some things I could have learned from watching Ernie.
Right. I mean, it's absolutely fantastic. I'm being attacked by a bee here. So yeah. So, I mean, a lot of it must be mental stubbornness. I mean, we talked about this before. I mean, to go in there under the pressure and actually to perform, that's one of the hardest things I think to do. But I think there's just a certain amount of sheer bloody mindedness to that. How do you
Well, I think you're right. And I think that's changed a little bit. I think guys in golf have been taught by sports psychologists to simply avoid, if you're free and loose and focused, which is a bit of an oxymoron for a lot of people, but if you're free and loose and focused, then that's how you're going to play your best. And so sports psychology has come out and said, just put on blinders, don't be distracted, just focus on what you're doing and just do that. And that works for players, particularly very talented players. That works until they reach a point to where that one of the blinders starts to come off a little bit and things start coming in, and then they're lost. And you see it every week, even on the PGA Tour. I did a study 2 years ago, COVID, sitting at home. I went back and looked at 25 tournaments on the PGA Tour, and I took the players that were tied for third or better after 3 rounds. So these are the players playing the best in the field. And on Sunday, 60% of those players shot 3 or shot average higher than the field, and averaged 3 shots higher than they did average the first 3 days. And so, I mean, they played nowhere near as good, 65% of them. And so I attribute it to this thing. They're not prepared enough to deal with those sort of things. And I think there's some advancements coming out now, and more is being learned and more is being studied, where that Tiger wasn't like that. Tiger was trained by a guy who was in special forces, who they did a lot of situational preparedness. And then he worked with a sports psychologist who was a military sports psychologist, and taught him how to use his hands to harness his creativity, among other things. And he worked with his mother, who was from Asia, who taught him to meditate. And you put those 3 things together, I think you have this fabulous elixir, to where Tiger Woods was probably the strongest ever mentally. Jack Nicklaus was super strong as well. But I think there's a formula there. And but yeah, it all comes down to being able to do your best at those special moments that really mean a lot, being able to rise to the occasion. I think that best, I was talking to Nick Faldo on air one day, and I asked him about the back 9. I said, Nick, do you feel like you could rise to the occasion of the back 9 at times? He says, absolutely, not every time. He says, but there was definitely another gear that you felt like you could do a little bit better. Padraig Harrington said, when you're at your best, you're nervous before the shot, and it helps you narrow your focus. When you're at your worst, you're calm before the shot, and you become nervous over the ball. Same sort of thing. Seve talked about willing the ball into the hole when he won the Open when you're at the old course. So I think that the great players, they find a way to rise to the moment without tightening up.
Yeah.
And that's the key, is how do you do it without getting tight or distracted?
Yeah. Yeah. And it's very difficult because you make one bum shot, that's the end of your purse. If it's bad enough, if you go into the woods somewhere or land in the water, which you were talking about the other time, I mean, that sets you back. So it puts an enormous amount of pressure on it. Do you hold back? I mean, you must play shots. You don't play 100% all the time. You must be picking shots that are that are fairly reason have a degree of safety about them.
Yeah, I think that every player is different, and every day is different. And you like to think that with your short clubs, that you be very aggressive with the lines that you take. If your swing feels great that day, see, I asked a number of players who were in the Hall of Fame or nearly in the Hall of Fame, just about 12 of them. I said, on the regular tour, what percentage of the time did your swing feel really good? And nearly every one of them said 25 or 30%.
Wow.
Only Nicklaus said 50 and Tom Lehman said 50. And so if your swing's only feeling really good a third of the time, then 2/3 of the time you've got to adapt and you change your strategy to, okay, I'm going to, if this is a really difficult, the hole's got in a tough spot, I'm going to make sure and keep that on the right side of the hole, even if I don't hit a good shot. Like Hogan said, it's not a game of perfect shots, it's a game of perfect misses. Where do you miss it? You need to, if you miss it in the right place, you can still play. If you miss it in the wrong place, as you said a moment ago, then it ruins your week. So it's all about how do you practice to control your miss? And that's Andy Bean. Andy Bean was a very good player on tour, and he his dad was a very strong individual and father figure, and Andy would practice with his own brand new balls back then, and he would aim right down 15 feet, just down the edge of 3 lakes that were on the property that they had. And if he hit a ball in the lake, his dad would get all over his butt. So he'd hit balls every day with that lake right there, and he ingrained the ball missing to the right, not to the left, because he always put the lakes on the left. So his miss was always to the right. And if you know that you're going to miss the ball one direction, now you can swing with certainty, because you can either aim away from the trouble or you can aim at it and work it off of it, one or the other.
Yeah, that's interesting. So how do you take all this knowledge and apply it to your fly casting?
Well, fly casting, there's, the thing I emailed you this morning, there's different types of practice. One is technique, where you're merely trying to make something look better to you, whether you're watching it yourself, a video, or a coach, or somebody's watching it, so, make it look more like this. But you might make it look better, but it's not going to feel better at first. And then the next part of it is trying to, okay, I want it to look better and also start to feel a little bit better so I can repeat it. It becomes a little more repeatable. And once you get where you can repeat it, now you need to get where you own it. Now, how do you own it? Well, you own it by putting yourself in different situations. You throw at targets, you throw it, you pretend like the fish is facing one way and you have to throw it on that side. You throw in between trees, under trees. You throw into the wind. You throw in a wrong-sided wind. You come up with every scenario you can come up with that challenges you. And if you can make it work in all these different scenarios, now you own it. Now you can take it out. You can go to the water with it. And golf, you do pretty much. That's really how you should practice. It doesn't mean everybody does. I was following a guy one day, and who's on tour now, and he hit a bad iron shot on the last hole, and I never met him before. I was doing television, and he hits flares an 8-iron out 40 feet right of the hole, and he walks by me and he says, "God, I just can't commit." So we were off air after that. That was his last hole. So I went up, I introduced myself to him. I said, "Joel," I said, "do you mind if I ask you a couple questions?" He says, "No." He says, "When you warmed up today, did you aim at all the targets down the center of the range and try to get a good feel for your swing?" "Yeah," with this look like, no shit, dumbass, And I said, "By chance, did you hit any aiming at the right fence to see how close you could come to the fence without hitting it over the fence, or the left fence to see how close you could come without hitting it over the fence?" He goes, "Well, no." I said, "If you had, do you think you might have been able to commit a little bit better?" Now he's looking at me like, "You got me, right?" So
Yeah.
just because you make it to the tour doesn't mean your practice is effective. But that's the kind of thing.
Mm.
Situationally, I think situational practice is tremendously effective once you get a feel for what you're trying to do.
Yeah. So, I mean, very commonly, I hear guys going off fishing for tarpon or permit, jumping on a plane, traveling, spending a lot of money, going fishing for a week, and maybe the first couple of days there's no shots, and then all of a sudden the shot appears, and how difficult that is. Yeah, everything goes out the window, it's rushed, the fly doesn't actually get anywhere close to the fish. So it's about having the control to actually put that in. And now that's, I think, very difficult to teach. I think it comes back to the field. I think we have to set ourselves up and train, like not just cast like we do, but hang back there, have this imagination that this fish is appearing, that we've just flown around the world and we're only going to get one shot, and then to make that shot. Is that how
I agree.
That's how you do it?
Yeah, I agree 100%. I also try to tap into a person's area of expertise. And for instance, Mike Malaska was a great teacher. He tried to make it to the tour. He's a wonderful player, but he never made it. He was also a wonderful downhill skier. And his mental game just never quite got to that level. So I tried to help him. And I came up with this thing one day. I called him up and I said, Mike, I said, when you were downhill skiing, when you were racing, I said, were you focused? Oh yeah, you had certainly. You were focused in your mind's eye. You were always aware of where you were, in space. You weren't trying to control it, but you were aware of it, so you could react to the mountain and do the things. I said, did you look ahead at the course, at what was coming up? He said, yeah. Before you went down, you were looking at the course and these turns and where you wanted to be. And as you're on the course, you're always aware of where you're going next. I said, were you afraid? And he says, I wasn't afraid. My dad taught me when I was growing up that falling was part of it, and that you're always going to fall. And so you just expected, that at some point you're going to fall. People fall. So you didn't worry about that. I said, so you were very focused. You were very aware, but you really weren't. You were nervous, but you weren't worried about falling. Did you ever play golf that way? He goes, well, heavens no. How could I possibly play golf like that? I said, well, do me a favor. I want you to sit on the corner of your bed, close your eyes, take yourself back to sitting there in the blocks, getting ready to ski down whatever mountain you want, and keep your eyes closed as long as you need to until you feel like you felt in one of those races getting ready to ski. So after a minute, he opens his eyes. He says, okay, I feel pretty much like that. I said, do you think you might play pretty good golf like this? He says, yeah, but obviously I would. He says, but how do I do that in 40 seconds before playing a shot? I said, well, if you spent 5 minutes in the morning and 5 minutes at night, every single day, doing what you just did, imagining these different things, do you think in the course of 5 or 6 weeks, you might get to where you could do it quicker? Well, yeah. I said, there you go. That's how you do it. And that, to your point, that's exactly what you're saying.
Yeah. And did that work for him? I mean, did he suddenly?
Yeah, I mean, at this point, he was already 60 years old and playing. But yeah, he's played some really good golf since then, and he's very convinced that that's the right way to go. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's really about believing. It's about believing. It's not necessarily about believing in yourself. You've kind of got to have that, but it's about believing you're going to make the shot, that it's actually going to happen. I think it's
confidence is the strongest feeling you can have, but you don't want to have to be confident, particularly in golf, to play well. The best players are still able to play well when they're not confident. What you want to be is when you're confident, you're relaxed, but you're focused. So tension doesn't get in the way, distraction doesn't get in the way. So if you can make yourself feel like that, even when you're not confident, by using curve, if you can say, well, I know I can aim at that, curve it off of it. It's not a perfect shot, but I can make it work. I can get it down there. All of a sudden now you can play a shot with certainty, with freedom. And if you can train yourself, everybody gets afraid of an outcome. But if you can train yourself to not be afraid of being afraid. In other words, if you're afraid, what's wrong with being afraid? Well, being afraid makes you tighten up, doesn't it? It makes you, all of a sudden, things don't move with fluidity. You don't have any flow anymore, no rhythm. If you can train yourself not to be afraid of when you feel that you're afraid, now you take away that physiological impact of being fearful, and you can play when you're afraid. And so you don't have to be confident to play well.
Hmm.
In fishing, I would say for instance, even this, you're competing in accuracy, and the wind comes up down. So the wind is coming straight down, which means in accuracy, you got to make that high back cast back into the wind and have it straighten out well enough that you got control of that downcast, of your forward cast. And in your mind, all of a sudden your mind starts to tighten up, say, oh, that's freaking, this is hard, right? And so you tighten up a little bit. If you can then convince yourself and say, well, okay, then I'm going to change my stroke slightly, that will give me just a little more pop or narrow my loop. I'm going to do a little bit of a pullback on my back cast back there. I'm going to use a little more wrist at first and do a little pullback to zip that thing a little bit. And that way I'm going to be able to feel my line straighten. Now I've got a plan. And all of a sudden now you're not quite as fearful, are you? You got another thing to focus on that's going to allow you to compete.
I think in Flycasting, one of the problems is we don't actually compete that often. It's not like you're out there, you know, on tour that you've got how many weeks a year. So it makes it quite difficult. I mean, like World Championships happens once every 2 years, and for me, you know, right now I'm having a competition once every 2 years. I'm trying to set something up down here to get it going. But that's
very difficult.
I've always enjoyed the and I've always felt when it's been good, I've always kind of felt that I'm standing on top of the mountain. I've kind of on top of the world, you know. I kind of feel that I'm on the top and I own everything around that I can cast. That's when it's good. And I try to get to that. I try to get to that point where I'm climbing up and feeling good about it. I mean, it's a long way to mess up.
Try this. Go back and look at the times that you have felt like you're on top of the mountain and describe everything about your body language, about what you were saying to yourself, what you were thinking, how you got yourself to feeling that way and what it felt like. And then go back and describe when you weren't on top of the mountain, when you felt like you were in a cave about halfway up that mountain. And what were you saying to yourself then? What were you feeling? How did you end up there? And a lot of times, if you can simply come up with an awareness of what you want to feel versus what you don't want to feel and kind of the things that contributed to being there, that knowledge in and of itself is enough to really help you get there more often.
Yeah, no, absolutely fascinating. It's really interesting how much similarity there is between, well, I guess all sports, but particularly, you know, some of the things that we've done, and it's really great that you're kind of doing both. So come on, then tell me about what you've been working on with your casting since we last met.
Well, my shoulder bothers me so I haven't done a lot of competitive type distance work. I do a lot of fishing distance work, which you outlined in your video is different. And to me, fishing distance is being able to make a long shot without rocking the boat, without too many things going on. So no weight shift, no driving things. And I feel like if I can control my loop and throw things a pretty far distance without a lot of effort, then I can come in and make short casts a whole lot easier and more accurately. And I've also been started working on short casts as well. And I've got a 5-weight right now, and I'm throwing into a little bit of a breeze. But the thing on my normal cast I've started working on lately, I actually started with, I watched your 170 presentation, and I watched how you were, I've been thinking about what John's working on and that sort of stuff, and I can't externally rotate my shoulder. It just hurts from throwing too many baseballs to my son. But I can bend my arm this way. And I was watching your 170 cast, and you made your long cast, your last cast, your presentation cast. Your arm never got back in here. Your arm was started from about right in here. And I'm thinking, he's losing some distance there and some leverage there. You've got 3 levers: your shoulder, your elbow, and your wrist. He's losing some power there. I wonder if I can use that somehow. And so I just started working on just casting some where where I would bring my arm back and get it right in here really, really close. And all of a sudden it's like, hey, I've got all this power.
Yeah.
Now I can, that feels really strong. And so then I started messing around with distance a little bit again, just for fun. And I modified it. To the forward cast. I make my back cast here, and I've got to stop my back cast. I can't get it all the way back there without it hurting. So I try to pick it up here with a really loose grip, and I try to hold it in here this way, like this. And I get my elbow, I try to pull my elbow down a little to start bending the rod when I pull it down. And I get it to right there, and then just and I just pop it and just let it go. If I try to force it, I don't get, if I use a fiberglass rod, I can throw a beautiful thing, but with graphite, I don't seem to get much more out of it. So there's my back cast. My forward cast, what I started trying to do was then as soon as I'd finish that back cast, then I would put myself in this position right here like this. Try to get this elbow way up, way bent, shoulders up. And then I would pull my elbow, I'd start pulling my elbow and my chest down over. So I'm pulling this way and I'm pulling down until I get to, now the rod feels really bent. Once I get all the way out here, then I'd kind of spring and give it that at the end.
Yeah.
And that the amount of power I got from here to there and coming straight over the top, because I tend to get a little around it. So just come right here, just coming straight over the top like that. And I'm like, holy crap. I mean, it was, I don't know how much distance I've picked up, because I lost my 5 MED. I left it on the road somewhere. I don't have one. I've been working on distance. So I'm throwing this thing, but I'm like, geez, that is way better than I've ever done. And so now I've come up with this, and this is something I'm really curious about with you. And it particularly with I fish primarily with 7s and a little bit with 9s. But you've got to, the idea of, I enjoy messing with stuff. I can rotate late. I can keep it, under and do it that way. I can rotate all the way through it early. But for most people, if they can, once they can make a loop, they struggle with tailing loops and applying power, right? And so to keep from a tailing loop, I figured this is really interesting. If I come back here, if I look at my elbow right here, and if it works down and back, when it works back, my reel is rotating. It's rotating my arm by moving backwards, isn't it?
Yeah.
So without using my wrist, without rotating, if I take my elbow and go back, now I'm on top of it. There's no tail. There's not going to be any tail right there. And so I load the bottom of the rod and get to that point, and then just give it a little push.
Yeah.
And I can, with no more than that, with my 7 weight, with a fly, I can throw it 90 feet with just doing that.
Yeah, there's two things in there, Phil. So let me deal with that one first, right? So you're absolutely right. I mean, if you're rotating through the stroke, like curving this hand, there is absolutely, or as you're applying the force, it's not possible to tail, particularly if you've got, past the perpendicular. And then you can rotate it as hard as you like, it's just not going to tail. So that's the power application. The second thing I was thinking there was with the back cast and versus the forward cast that you were talking about first, there's another cue that I use. So you've got your 2 targets. You've got your one directly behind you, 180. You've got your one in front. The third is your shoulder. So the hand must cut. So in our close stance or in our accuracy, we just come here to the shoulder. But when we open, we give the hand, it must come through where the shoulder is. So we've got those 2 alignments there. So I use the shoulder as a cue to make sure that the back cast aligns to the front cast. Otherwise, if I don't do that, and it's something I probably see from 99% of casters who don't train come out to the side. And then even if you come in here, your line is over at that angle now, and you come forward. And as it comes forward, that's the cause of it hooking to the left on that distance.
So I'm very conscious about coming through this shoulder position, and I check it, right? So I have making the back cast on the open stand. So of course, and you're in the boat, so there's not very much weight shift, but there is a torso twist. The hand is coming through past the shoulder, making the cast. So let me actually do one. Oops. So I get into that position here. So stop once I've rotated, and then let the line come down, and then just turn the torso around, and the hand is still in front of the shoulder. So I haven't taken this out to the side. All I've actually done is I've come to this position, but I've got the torso twist, which is brought it out to the side, which is what allows me to lengthen up my stroke, but it's still come through the shoulder position, if that makes sense.
Right.
That's how I analyze that.
It does make sense, and I tend to get too much from the side. And when I'm focusing, I don't worry as much about that when I'm fishing, because particularly most of your shots are shorter, and I'm making them sidearm anyway. Anything under 50 feet, I'm going sidearm or under or whatever. But if I am lately been messing more with distance or whatnot, I will, same thing you're doing, but a different way. I'll look up above and picture where vertical is right there. And the only way I can get there is to come through close here. So I'm working that straight line. So I'll actually, vertical's right up there, and I can make myself come back, more vertically through it that way. And it does the same thing you're talking about.
Yeah.
You start here and you just work through that spot.
That's interesting, because I do the same thing. I don't think I actually talked about this. I realized I was doing it when I pick my target on the forward cast and I'm making the delivery. I see this part of the rod, the top about 2/3 of the way up as I come forward. So I've got my target, and then I look up with the eyes to see that rod coming through, and then I think it does two things. Firstly, it allows me to be perfect to straight, because I've got my target and I've got the cue of seeing the rod. But it's also when I time the power, the acceleration as a rotation and the haul. So all these things coincide when I see that point there. So out of my window there. There's another thing there, Phil, and I'd like you to try this, because the 170 is not moving this shoulder out to the side like this. What the 170 actually is, it's being in this position and just extending from the elbow.
But how do you make it back? Do you turn your shoulders that much to do that, or
you come over?
I can't go above my shoulder. Okay. I gotta keep my elbow below my shoulder. I can do this. The side, I can do it. I can do that from the side. This,
and you could lean back.
So kind of like this here.
No, lower. So it's no stop. So I teach, it's like a frisbee. Okay, so you've got the frisbee movement. You make the frisbee movement. All right.
So am I gonna? So is it going to throw at you? Or am I throwing it? If my shoulders are right here, or am I throwing it there?
There. Yeah. Okay, so it's like a frisbee out 90 degrees.
If I do it right here, I can do it. I can't No. I can do that right there.
It's not. It's like the side. But then what we do to make it vertical, we lean back.
You just lean back. I can probably do that. Let me try it. Hey, I'm doing a video right now. I'll talk to you in a little bit. I'm doing a video right now. I can throw that far real easily. So it's a friend who lives over here come out to bug me. So it's more that way. Is that kind of a more? I got to get more that way, right? That kind of hurt a little bit.
Yeah. No stop. No stop.
No stop.
No stop. Just finish pointing the rod at the target, and the power is, that's it. And the rod butt tucked under the forearm, of course. So you're leading with the back of the hand.
All right. So you started here. So kind of get in. If I get in closer, I tuck it in here, I can do it more.
There.
but
Well,
you
like
can,
that? Is that it there?
yeah, but you turn up so the back, so the reel's on its side, so the reel's parallel to the ground. Other
This
way.
way?
I know I can't see now. It's too
This way?
small. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, yeah. So it's
This
in.
way? This way?
Show me.
Oh, so it's facing you?
Yep. So
Right.
it is just like throwing a frisbee, and you can
I
just
got you.
don't use
Oh, I got you. I
don't use
see.
the body, just extend from the elbow. So there's no shoulder movement at all. When you get into position, the cast is simply your elbows already aligned at the target. So your upper arm is aligned at the target, and all you're going to do to cast is straighten the elbow.
So you're like this?
Yep. First, no.
Right here?
Yeah, hang on. Have a look at this, Phil. Let me just jump back here at the camera. So we get into this position, and we're in. This is the position we want to get into. So if I'm casting at you, my forearm straight at you, and all I'm going to do on that cast, it's aligned with the shoulder. That's it. And all I'm going to do is open up from the elbow. So it's just
Right
that
here.
So there's not shoulder or anything else. We just get into that position, and that's where the acceleration is. That's like our wrist flick on our back cast. You know how like we stop the forearm and we flip the wrist. In this case,
Right.
this position here, this is at 90 degrees, and we're just going to throw the frisbee just by extending the elbow.
Right. So is that correct? Like that? Is that it? Right here. Line the elbow up, and then.
Yep. At the target for me. So I can look down down the arm, and I can see the target through my elbow. You know, my elbow's there.
Okay.
See the target, and then I just throw to it, just like throwing a frisbee. Does that hurt?
A little bit. I'd have to try it and see. That's why I use so much rotation of my body on my backstroke, is to keep it from hurting. If I can kind of keep it tucked in, it doesn't hurt as much. But that's.
You can't do it. But that is basically it's not here at all. It's not here.
Right.
It's just
right.
that. It's just that.
It's just there.
Yeah.
You know, I kind of do that when I throw at fish. I want to make a back cast at fish. That's kind of what that is. It's sort of. I mean, I just get it up there, and that's kind of it right there, isn't it?
Yeah, that's it.
Isn't that close?
But I just don't stop.
Oh.
I just point straight at the fish. So there's no.
Well,
stop.
yeah, I was
absolutely stopless.
I pretty much was. So I was on that. I get up here. I try to feel my elbow, my wrist bent like this, so it's tucked under here, and then I'm just boom right there at the fish right there.
Yeah,
that's pretty much the same thing, isn't it? Just right there.
Yeah, I just get the elbow up a little bit and the hand down.
Right.
So,
I just have to keep. I have to keep the elbow down. I just can't. I mean, I can get it up for about 4 casts, and I'm gonna have to leave. That's all.
Yeah. Well, not. I think to raise that elbow. I mean, I'm not like this. I'm not in this position here because this does hurt. I'm here.
Right.
Any of the videos, I've arched my back to allow this to come over. So it's really this side horizontal turn to the vertical just by arching back of it. But it works off the side too. It is a really good shot, and I think the frisbee is probably the best analogy.
It's actually going very nicely there, going back. It's actually going very well.
Really nice hole.
That's actually going really well.
And that gives you
I'll have to,
the best hole that you'll ever get on that backhand delivery, because the hands are going.
They're separating, aren't they?
Separating with the body in between it, parallel to it. Nice.
Yeah, that's nice.
So obviously
that's right down my. I tell you, the nice thing about that is I can see my target better.
Yep.
Bend it over like this, I can see my target. Those casts are right down. I've got a tape down here, and that's right down the line. I can see. I can see versus trying to go this way. I can see a lot better.
And really important in that, you've got two targets. So,
Right.
and that back target has to be up. It has to be above, angled up slightly, depends on which angle you're coming through. But the back cast has to be 180 degrees, which means it has to be elevated a little bit. Okay.
Right.
But then, you know, so long as you have two targets and you line them up and you come through straight, you know, that's mostly what flycasting is.
Right. And can you see my rod about, if I'm right here, is this about right for you to see it? So there's another another finish to the cast that I'm intrigued with. And I do this best, the lighter the rod, the better. I can do it with an 8-weight out to about 75 feet, but I get a lighter rod, I can do it further, and it's intriguing. And that's to actually take it and go all the way down with my finish down there. And I can make the top line work really straight and over. The loop is weird because the rod goes all the way down. The bottom of the loop is obviously opens up, it's down by the water or the ground. But the top line goes really straight like this. And it lays out, it lays the fly out so aggressively, and I'm very accurate with it because now we've always tried, instead of sitting here and either trying to stop or whatever, I'm doing right at my target.
Absolutely.
Do you make that cast?
I make that all the time. That is my stopless delivery for all my shots here in the snakehead. You know, I bring that rod tip all the way down, and I accelerate all the way to it into the rod. I don't push forward. I think I'll lose a bit of speed from that. So I do that chopping movement that you're talking about here, but I like to get that rod tip down touching. Whack. And I make backwards and backwards as well.
Do you feel like the rod stays bent all the way down to, I mean, like it's staying bent way down here, whereas a normal cast is bent straight?
Yeah, no, yeah, absolutely. That is basically what we're doing. I think the best analogy of that is, I think it's something Nick said. Like normally what we're trying to do is we are trying to accelerate that rod, and then we're stopping the rod so that it passes this straight position in line with the loop and then goes down into counterflex. Okay. Now in the 170 or the stopless, we're not doing that at all. We're just accelerating through that point all the way down to the water. And the line is going to go in that direction because of our targets and the length of the line. Because this part of the line is straight, even though we do that, this momentum is carrying down to the target. And that's basically how that works.
Yeah, it feels like the more you can stay under it, here the better, and then you just turn it down.
Yeah.
Isn't now I'm not that adept in science, but in order to keep the rod bent, you've got to very minimally maintain the same speed or accelerate, otherwise the rod will start to stray, right?
Yeah.
You agree with that?
Well,
so isn't change of direction acceleration?
We're applying torque, so we're applying the force like this. But the theory is, if you were to maintain the force, then the rod would stay bent. But there's also the theory that it's a bit like a spring, that you hit it down and it's going to bounce back up no matter what you do. So you can't, you know, if I kept that force and was running forward and forward and forward, we have this self-deceleration mechanism in the physics side of things, where the theory is because you suddenly bent this rod back, it's like jumping down on a bed, that it's going to spring back up again. So pass.
Well, it's a really, I love the cast.
Let me show you a variation of that, which I think you might really like. So I don't know if we talked about torque twist before. So torque twist is where I've got that rod pointing at you, and I'm just going to turn the back of the hand, but still keep that rod in the same place. I'm not doing this. I'm not taking it around the side. Sure. I'm just taking it. I've got a boat coming at me. So if I show you this,
which way?
This bit here.
I've done that. Which way goes better for you? Torquing it in?
Oh yeah, of course we have. So I'm going to rotate clockwise.
Inward, yeah.
But
Is
apply
that what works best for you?
for the speed, yes. Okay,
Okay.
it's better to do that for me than it is to do that. I don't have the same speed, and well, I don't know, but I prefer it this way. But try that at the end instead of when you're taking the rod tip down to the ground, just put that twist in at the end of the last quarter of the stroke.
I've worked on that before. I've done that before. That's easy. But what's interesting is that if I get where I can really time it just right, going the other way, I can actually get a little more pop going the other way. It's easier to go that way to turn it in.
Yeah, but Phil,
That's
Phil, apply it with the one we had before, with the line is touching the water.
Oh, with that one, okay.
Right in at the end.
Interesting. Interesting. Ooh, that one zipped. That was nice. Huh. Interesting. I'll have to play with that some more. It does give it a little more zip, doesn't it?
It does. It certainly does.
That one did. That one did.
Yeah, one of the issues, be careful that when you're doing that is you don't take the rod too far back on the back cast, because it's lowering your back cast. You need that back cast to be high and
Okay.
plenty of arc on the forward. But that's how I make my shots, is I do that stopless, but I do a little torque twist at the end. I get the highest line speed of any of the techniques that I use doing that.
So is that how you throw your competitive distance casts?
No. But I have played with it a little bit. But I find there's such a small variation, a small deviation, that I don't think it's perfectly straight. But it is something I played with a little bit because it's so ingrained into my stroke now. But no, with the competitive distance, I normally use that cradle grip. You know, having that rod
Right.
first finger and then turning around that third finger into in here, so it's not even touching the forearm, but traveling along.
And you're more extended doing that, aren't you? More out here.
Well, I try to be, but when you look at video, it seems to be that I come down and then push up a little bit nowadays. But I still
don't you think? Go back to that for a second. See, I think there's a tremendous amount of power in pulling down just a little bit, that you bend the rod way down in here. If you want to throw distance, you got to get that rod bent down here in the cork, right? And then as it unfurls, the bend works its way out towards the end. Isn't that correct?
Yeah, more or less. Yeah.
More or less. Okay.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, usually, actually, if you see that rod unloading, this part of the rod unloads first. So
really?
you end up seeing. Hang on, is it this part? Yeah. So you can end up seeing an S shape in the rod as it's coming forward. Really? Very common.
Okay. I didn't know that. Okay.
Um.
Well, I just find that pull, if I want, for me, which I'm not anywhere near your level, but if I can get a little pull down first, kind of like you're talking about, and then back up with it, then I get more zip.
Absolutely. Because I sort of coming into this, I keep power out at this point, but as I come down, but then as I launch, I push up and I push up, get the whole body in behind it. In behind that shot, so I've come from a low position as I've got to there, and that's as I make that turnover, that second half of the rotation and applying the haul. That's when I'm launching up, and I'm looking at about 15 degrees above the horizon.
Right.
But if I look at myself on video, I'm actually going 30 degrees. You can actually see my hand going up at about that angle, and my whole body underneath it. I think I think most important of the stroke is not the first half. I think it's the last half, or even the last third. You know, it's that finer rotation. So I don't think about putting the power in at this point. I think about putting the power in at that final zip.
I agree, but just like golf or anything else, the first part is you're going down, you're creating load, leverage, bend, whatever you want to call it. You're loading the spring, if you will. You're not going to go and really release the spring, but you're trying to bend that spring. You're trying to bend this thing as much as you can bend it, and then you're going to time it and go with it as it releases, right?
Mm.
And so to me, this is setting up the power. This sets up that part of it.
Mm.
But the more you can get bend early and then use that bend going forward, it would seem like that would be more powerful.
Mm. Yeah, I tend not to think too much about it. I tend to.
That's what most people are really good to do. Things are like that.
I don't think. I don't have that. I don't focus on the bend of the rod. I don't focus on the feel. So maybe a little bit on the feel, but I don't focus on that aspect. I tend to focus on the targets, is what I tend to think about, or the rod tip. I don't think about applying force early. I think the force is applied. I think it goes further if you put the power in later than the power in early. So right. I feel the first part is more just getting the line moving as opposed to trying to accelerate it. Just feel like I'm trying to get in contact with the line. Because if you look at the measures of the acceleration, it's not linear. It's not a constant acceleration on the distance stroke. It accelerates. The acceleration
accelerates. Sure.
We have to start slowly. It's not a sudden rush to begin with. So right. I think part of the stroke for me is quite slow, low, until I get to that perpendicular or even later, and that's when I turn on the gas. Right.
I agree. I'm not disagreeing with that at all. It's just it's the setting it up part, and I 100% that it's slow. Just getting it going slow, and then you pop it.
Yeah. I'd be interested to see how you find that torque twist in those deliveries. I'd be interested to see how you get on with that.
And I think it will be really good because it feels like it puts your speed more out front, in which I tend to apply speed too soon. And I think doing that torque gets it out in front a little bit more. I like that. Was really nice right there. I think that's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's late. I mean, it's so that twist, right? It goes in there.
There, yeah, right.
Yeah.
No, I can feel that. I'm gonna have a lot of fun with that. What else am I working on? I like to play around, with different finishes and stuff, but I've gotten pretty good at, I don't know if you can see me now, but making this cast underneath the underslung loop. I've gotten pretty accurate with that. And all I try to envision a board over here, and I try to go right down that board, and I try to get the line moving down it. And then all I do, I don't go up or anything. I simply just turn my hand just a little bit. And I try to do it from the inside, not around it, but from in here, like I'm trying to make it come in close to me. Yep. And if I do that, then it gets stacked and it doesn't kick. It goes out straight.
Okay. Yeah, I know what you mean. I do something a little bit similar, but I don't make it just come up. I imagine it's like an umbrella handle on its side. So I come along and just curve it backwards a little bit. I think that it's like makes it then like a form of pullback. But I find it very difficult, particularly with a weighted fly, to make that actually go where I want it to go.
Yeah.
Over a short range cast, it's fine. But if I start to get up to about 20 meters, I find that very difficult. to actually keep the integrity of the loop coming underneath.
I can throw it 70 feet.
Yeah, okay.
I don't know if I can with 5-weight, but I don't know if I can with a 5-weight, but I can with a 7. Main thing is just get it going, get it not hit the grass. Keep hitting the grass, and I'm gonna hit the grass. Right here, I got some longer grass around me. Yeah, I've gotten to where.
Do you find that the fly pop up?
No, I'm trying to get a tight loop that comes from. If I'm coming at you this way, I'm trying to feel like I do it in here, not out here, right in there, almost like I'm, in baseball. I don't know about cricket, but they have a drill where you get right against a fence, and you swing and never let the bat hit the fence. And so you got to stay way inside of it like this.
Yeah.
And so to me, this cast is kind of, I'm all over the place here now. This cast is similar in that, geez, I got it going everywhere here. If you can imagine coming inside, staying inside this way, I'm going to release it this way, not this way. I'm going to come right in there and release it like that. So I want to feel like that line is coming from here, even though it's going to come straight like this. I'm going to feel like I'm throwing it in here like that. It will actually cut. It will slice just a little bit sometimes. It doesn't hook. And I'm trying to throw a small loop. That's why I'm not going up. I'm just going just like that. And I try to make that loop as narrow as possible, and then it doesn't kick.
Yeah.
So you're going up a lot more than I want. So just try to stay level and just turn the hand slightly. Yeah, like that. The hand just stays level. You just turn it under just a bit. Exactly. And so you try to make that loop really small. And now try to make that was it there. Try to make the line come in where it feels like it's coming in right in by your right pocket. That was closer there, wasn't it?
Yeah, I have to lose the pullback.
Well, I think also you want it when you do it. I try to stop my follow through. I want my follow through to finish. It doesn't go very. See, my follow through is just right there. I don't want to finish way up there. I finish just right there, almost right in front of me.
Yeah.
So the rod finishes about right here, whatever that would be. Yeah, it doesn't. If it gets way out, if the rod gets way out past, then it hooks. Can you stop it quicker? Stop it sooner.
Yeah, you need it's much easier if you've got if you've got something to follow the tip with.
Right.
If you're looking at the tip line.
That looked pretty good right there. What did that do?
That was the best one. I think that was on the side. Yeah, I will play with that. Thanks, Phil. That will give me something interesting to do in the evenings.
It took me.
I like the way
3 months.
Yeah, and I like the way you have it on the vertical up over the top as well. I think that's also a really handy cast because it's straight and it's delicate.
Yeah, there's so many different ways you can make it unroll, but the one where you go this way, you may kind of take your rod tip and make a C like that.
Yep.
That one never kicks to the side.
Yep.
That one, you just make it is like a pullback. It's just make a C with it. That one never kicks sideways.
I think that
with a heavy fly.
If you've got heavily weighted flies and you're taking shots, particularly up quite close, because the fly is so close to the water, just rolling over the top. First thing, when you come underneath, there's always a danger that you clip the water. When you come over the top, that danger is gone. But because the fly is only traveling 3 feet above the surface of the water, it's only got 3 feet to fall, so it's actually quite a delicate presentation.
Right.
I like that.
So I've just been doing a lot of messing around with the shorter shots like that. I feel like I like what I'm doing with my a little bit longer shots. I feel very comfortable from a fishing standpoint. So I've started to come back to 50, 40, 30, even 20 feet and working on trying to get really accurate and close and trying to get quiet presentations and trying to get the right loop. And you had told me last time, talked about doing really short casts, a 20-foot cast using a little pullback. And that's helped me a lot on those little bitty ones like that. Just, being able to catch weeds, get that thing, get a nice loop, just do a little bitty pullback right there. And it just really makes a nice tight loop.
I practice that a lot I practice, with my snakehead outfit when there's leaves around the side of the boat, like within a rod length, I practice putting the fly on the leaf. And I do that, I can do that by basically drawing more of a circle. So, because of the, it's within a rod length, right? So you've got to do something differently. And I still want that line to be, that line to be straight. So I want when it lands, the line is straight so that I can bloop it straight away. I don't want to collapse line. Okay. So the way of doing that is to draw a circle either way. But I've got very good, there's a couple of leaves there. I'm very good at putting the fly within the saucer, even on this movement here. And there's a lot of times here that catches the fish because the fish doesn't see the boat when it's coming up. It's swimming the other direction. You get a shot, and I catch a lot of those fish up close. So get that close range stuff, I think, is it's super important. A lot of people don't practice it. Most people practice with 30 or 40 feet of line.
Right.
And I think 70% of the shots are within 40 feet, or they should be, or at least 50% depends on the fishery, doesn't it? But yeah,
it does. Absolutely.
Yeah, and you can get very good at it. And I think that's for me, that's where a lot of that wristy stuff comes from, is just having a leader and a fly. And the only way to cast that is to flick the wrist. If you do that with the leader, the fly just doesn't do
all
it.
over the place, isn't it?
So it's a little bit like if you were casting a spinner, but in this case, we're casting the fly back, the spinner, the popper backwards and then forwards, and we've got to once again hit that bell. So I do a lot of teaching of people taking shots. It's part of what I'm doing. They're all going off to the Keys. I've got guys in the Keys right now fishing for tarpon. I had some guys last week fishing with permit, and it's obviously what I do here too. So what I teach is, when you see the shot, is to breathe. Breathe out, because that is the problem. I think they immediately rush everything. Fly hasn't gone anywhere, and they've messed up their shot. So they have to breathe. I think breathe out, just relax. It just takes 10-20 of a second, but to look where you want to put the fly, which is not where the fish is. It's to look at the target. And that's the first thing that goes through the mind. I've got my target. And then the second thing is I have another target behind me, 180 degrees. And it's a bell, it's an imaginary bell. And I must ring that bell before, I must see all of that. I must see that target, ring the bell, and then I can hit the target. Or if the fish is moving, if we've got a fast moving fish, it's the final back cast where everything is committed. You might have 3. I would always never have more than 3 casts in the sequence, right? Usually it's going to be 2. Sometimes it's only 1. Here it's only ever 1. It's a back cast and a forward cast. But so you might have 2 or 3 because you've got this fish coming. Well, the first one, you're kind of tracking the fish, the first 2. But on that third back cast, you are committed. Because wherever that back cast goes, it's going to be your forward cast is going to be directly in front of it. So that final one, that little bell, golden bell, is up there ringing that you must strike. And it's amazing how few people have a back target. Or forget.
How few people can even make a back cast, let alone have a target.
Well, yeah.
And it's so important here because our typical wind is from the southeast, and your visibility is to the north and west. And so your back cast is invariably into the wind and your downcast is downwind. And so many of my friends they can't make a back cast. But I decided a few years ago that I don't fish with very many people because I have X number of days left to go. And I took a few guys that are friends and they can fly cast a little bit. But I would pole for 2 hours and finally catch one or two. And I get up there in 10 minutes, I might catch two. And I'm back on the pole for 2 hours. And I'm like, I'm not a guide. I'm doing this. I'm going fishing. I want to fish. So I enjoy going by myself a lot sometimes. But
that's it. Yeah. It's no good. It's no good playing fish for fish if you're catching yours straight away and the other guy isn't.
No. So I don't know if I can do this with a 5-weight. I normally do it with a 7 or more. But my short shots, and there's a lot of weeds here, so I don't know if I'll be able to shoot the line back. I've started doing this. I'll go with 9 feet of fly line out of the end of the rod is all, and then the fly in my hand. And so drifting, I like to drift fish for redfish. Now with this setup, I can go in close, I can go any which way I want in close, and I will hold about 5 feet of line here. And so if I see a fish, I got the rod plus 9, I go to 27 feet, 9 feet, 9 feet of line, 9 feet of leader. If I want to go a little further, I keep this line right here about 5 feet in my hand. And if I want to go a little bit further, all I do is I'm sitting here like this, and I will shake it out and do that. And now, boom, I can go right there. Now, even if I don't shoot any line out, I'm at another 5 feet. I'm at 32 feet.
Yep.
And you do something similar. And then that's what my quick shot is. Like if I want to go 60 feet, which again, I don't know if I can do that here with a 5, but I'll sit here like this. If I want to go 60 feet, I will just shake that out, come back here, make one here, and then boom. And I can get to 60 or 70 feet with just that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I have a harder time doing it. If I don't keep the 5 feet of line in my hand like this, then I have a hard time getting enough out on that initial back cast to go far enough.
It's very hard. So here we don't have time to force cast, and yet we still have some shots to the 60 feet. And so it's all pick up and lay down. But let me show you something on this. And I think it's something I've been talking to a few people about this, because it would speed things up. Because we know, you have this pick up and lay down shooting shot. Now you might have the fly in hand, okay, with your 9 feet of fly line out. But if that first movement, assuming you've got to make a long shot, if that first movement was to put the line on the water, I've got a boat in the way here. But if my first movement was to flick that line on,
now you got some resistance.
My snakehead shot.
Yeah, you got resistance then, don't you?
Well, I've not only got resistance, you got resistance, but you can slip line against it. So if I've got, let's just say we've got 9 feet there, and I put that line out, I can now slip 6 feet, shoot another 5 or 6 feet, and then I've got my shot.
And then you can slip a little bit more on the way coming forward.
Yeah,
that's awesome. I mean, even here on the grass, I could do that. I slip, hit, slip, go. Yeah. That's cool. I like that. And so, yeah, if you're not, that fish is a little ways away.
Yeah, that takes out a false cast.
It does, doesn't it? That is cool.
And here that's
to mess with that.
Yeah, and here that's absolutely critical. So, I measured my cast, my 8-weight cast, starting with a fly line out. 9 feet of fly line on the water, plus leader. I measured to 75 feet. Okay, on a snakehead shot, pick up and lay down shooting shot with an 8-weight bonefish line.
Wow.
That's just, the problem, so I can make that here, but the problem is, but even with a single back cast and forward cast, 75 feet, by the time the fly gets to the snakehead's gone. So I don't have shots at that range. Realistically, I have shots to about 60 feet. Okay, from me to about 60 feet, and that's all achievable. But that's how I would be approaching those situations where to make a long cast, instead of making
even at bet, you know, if I make a long cast with fly in hand is usually 3 casts, isn't it? You've got that swing back. That you might even have 3 casts from that point, because you've only got, because you can't really shoot line on that first back cast. So you've got whatever you had in your hand outside the rod tip to get going. It's just so much quicker just to, if you flick it on the water and slip it, you've saved yourself.
That's awesome.
One cycle on that.
Yeah, I can't wait. I can't wait to get in some water and mess with that.
Yeah.
Never thought of that. That is cool. Yeah, so you just, even right here on the grass, I can sit here. I've got just that out, and just when you pick it up, you're just slipping, and then boom, you hit it right there at the end, and then you're shooting it back there. You can slip more if you want coming back. If you drift a little, you can shoot more coming.
Yeah,
that is really cool.
Yeah, let me show you some in airfield as well. So on that pickup, so I haul, and I just messing there, but I haul to that full arm stretch, and then I turn the thumb out so that the line is down the groove of the thumb and first finger for my shoot on that first back cast. So I come up, whack, and it shoots.
So you can do that right there, so it shoots through there better.
Yeah,
that's when you put the duct tape. That's when you put the duct tape on your hand.
I have to turn.
So you're like this.
Yeah, but really accelerate to a full arm. That's it. Yeah, turning the thumb out. And it will mean, and I think you're fine, because a lot of people do sort of down up as, yeah, you're perfect. So one, and then the second one, I don't try to get the hand back up. I just turn the shoulders to get the rod hand in front of the line hand. You don't need a long haul, and there's no time to get the hand back up. So I go from that, whack, and then I'm in there, and then pass the body.
And just boom. Interesting. Huh. I can do that. A little practice, I can do that. All right, I can get that. It's going to take me a few. I can get that.
Yep.
Cool. Thank you.
Sure, man.
Look forward to that.
When does your fishing? When does it all start for you? When is it? Is it season, or is it just winter?
It's good. It's good year round. It's just a matter of finding some weather. You need sunshine, which we've got virtually none this time of year, and you just need some decent wind so the water's not muddy everywhere.
Right. Okay.
It's gotten so crowded around here that I'm ready to explore some new areas and try to get back in some marshes and stuff. And I've met a guy that has some areas that he fishes like that I'm looking forward to. He's a very good fisherman. He used to guide in Alaska. I'm looking forward to getting out with him and learning some of that water. Because it's gotten so crazy.
And you were saying he had a few places too. They read his front page there that he was off, and he met some old guy whose friend had had a heart attack, but he came back and he had a whole bunch of big fish with him. He obviously, even in the shitty weather, he was out there fishing and being successful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I talked to him. He told me about that. Yeah, he told me about that. The torque twist.
Yeah, I get so much speed. It's really interesting. So I use that torque twist on both of my shots. So with my Gourami rod, I use torque twist bang to put the fly down first. You know, so it's just it's like stopping earlier, and that makes the fly always come down first, which is important because you need the fish to hear the fly land. Okay, and if they hear the line land, they come and look for the fly line, and they never swim down the fly line and eat down along the leader and eat the fly. They always swim up, look at me and smoke. Right? So it's got to be. That's my way of putting the fly first on that torque twist there. So it comes in like that, bang, and then I use exactly the same for the snakehead shot, but I put the torque twist in right down to the. It's almost like it's not quite like screwing the rod tip into the water, but it's almost,
it's close, isn't it? Yeah, it's right down in here, isn't it?
It's like I
way down.
like laying it on a plate. It's like
right.
So I use it for both my shots of gourami and snakehead. So it's become very ingrained. So when you were saying, have you used it for your distance shot? I'm thinking, well, yeah, I have, and I have tried it, but I haven't. I don't have enough data yet to know whether it's really the way I want to go yet. When I have
where it's going to hurt or help.
cast, I have noticed sometimes there's some deviation in the loop, and it's not quite perfectly straight, But it's an interesting one because it would.
What do you think about my idea of you taking these sort of things like this, all the variations of distance? To me, particularly releases. What you can do, whether you're throwing over the fence, 170, whether it's a pullback, whether it's just a stop, and what it is. I'd be fascinated to listen to you talk about those different finishes to a distance cast.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea, and I'll write that out and have a plan of that. I think that'd be a really interesting one. One of the most interesting things I used to do was when I was summering in New Zealand. There was this river, the River Waiau, and there was like a cliff that overlooked this river. And some evenings I would park this old beat up 4x4 that I would park on the side of this cliff, stand on top of the roof, and throw over the top of this cliff. My back cast, I'm probably 20 feet above the ground, and my forward cast a couple of 100 feet, right? And I would just get to my maximum carry on that, which is about 90, 95. In fact, on that elevated, it's actually a little bit more than 100. And I would just work on the different strokes, whether it would be applying power just at the end by clicking the fingers, whether it would be swooping, whether it would be wasn't torque twist end, but it might be cutting around. And I would try all those different things on that really long carry. And it wouldn't matter if it messed up and went off on the side, because by the time it had gone all the way down, it would be straight enough that I could bring it up and carry on. I learned so much doing that. I got to the point. So when I first built my shack in Hungary, the first thing I did was build a casting platform.
Top.
Yeah, about 25 feet up, so I could stand up there. I had to chop some trees down, tops off some trees at the back so I could get this back cast. So I'm on this big hill, and I was just throwing over the top of that too. And that's what I use the boat roof for the same thing now. It's just, it gives you that little bit more time, because
right.
You've got a long, I've made a video there of the boat roof. I made the shot, and I'm waiting, and I'm still okay to get it going again. You don't have that kind of luxury, especially when you've got bits of grass sticking up trying to grab your flies. It's coming fast. But yeah, so I would encompass that. And I actually think I talked a little bit about that, because you can really experiment with different strokes and work out, what works better and for what reason. It's always interesting. So the Belgian cast is a good example of that. So the Belgian cast was originally called as such because this guy went to the States and he used an oval cast, and because he was Flemish, so they called it the Belgian. He was from Belgium, so they called it the Belgian cast. But it's an oval cast, but it's not good for distance, because when you come round to the side, your back target is there. When you come over the front, it means your back target should really have been there. So there's an inherent tracking error in it, which is fine.
I love your idea of a Belgian cast. Basically, this tilting is this, and so now you solve that issue with basically a Belgian cast almost, right? In the 170, I mean, this is a Belgian cast. It's sort of the same
right.
thing,
Yeah.
And you solved it by tilting.
It solved it that way. Yeah.
I'm going to have to go here in a second. I've got lightning alerts on my phone. It's starting to rain.
All right.
I really appreciate the time, and
hey, man.
always fun talking to you.
Fantastic, and thanks for giving us we'll use this. So thanks for giving us some insight into your golf world and your history there. It's been really insightful.
Anytime, yeah.
Really insightful.
Anytime.
But
Golf is very interesting.
let's get together next, in a couple of weeks when that's all running together, and have another look, have another play.
Okay, I would like that. Yeah, you just let me know what works for you.
Yeah.
Even when I'm out working, I'm usually open in the mornings, and so if it's evening for you, morning for me, that works perfect. Even when I'm out working.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that will work. We'll be dark here, but we can absolutely do that too.
Well, no. I mean, I'm sorry. That's right. It'd be the other way around, wouldn't it? You know what? With the time change now, we're normally done 4 or 5 o'clock. So I could still do an evening thing here, a morning for you. So
Awesome.
yeah, you just let me know what works for you, and we can work it out.
Awesome. All right, Phil, that'd be fantastic.
All
All right.
All the best.
Thanks again, man.
Yeah, you got it. I hope one of these days we can meet sometime.
Well, you have to maybe come over here and cover a golf tour.
Yeah, I did for a few years. Unfortunately, it was before that I got on Sexy Loops and got to know you. But I came to Kuala Lumpur 3 different times covering the tournament. They don't have it anymore. Yeah, so I was in the neighborhood. I just didn't know. Yeah, I wish we still were. But one of these days.
Yep.
I gotta go. There's the thunder.
All right. Have a great evening, man.
All right. You too. Have a good day. Thanks.
All right.
Bye.
Thanks a lot. Hey, thank you.
All right, well, I hope you enjoyed that. Thank you very much, Phil. That was very insightful, very educational. I learned a lot there. Particularly, I found the tips and the advice on how to compete and how to get your mind sorted. Found that really fantastic, really interesting. And, of course, what you're doing for a living now. And, hey, I hope those 3 little bits of casting there, I hope they work out. I'll be interested to hear how that goes, particularly that utilizing that torque twist. I don't know anybody who's doing that or teaching that, and it's certainly I've certainly ingrained it into my shot here, and I see the results. So cheers, talk to you soon, mate. I'm gonna catch a fish.